I think the ability to not be scared to fail is one of the most important traits you can have. And the only way you can fail, the only way you can get there is by failing.
Folks, I've got an incredibly exciting guest today. Someone that I because of a pandemic and geography, I've not had the opportunity to get to know on a really deep personal level. But I think today's conversation with Mr. Smash, Steve Orosco, is gonna help to tell his story a little bit more, build on the rapport that he and I have already had over the last few years. And I got to tell you, this one is going to be special. It's going to be action-packed. Steve, he has his MBA, born and grew up in Pennsylvania, got his MBA, former Wall Street broker, turned MMA fighter, turned MMA and gym owner, Smash headquarters, and he is now running for Senate in Connecticut. My guy, Steve Orosco, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you for having me. And I like the screen behind you. I love it.
You love it?
That's me.
Look, first of all, I think people who know you on Instagram know you have one of the most dynamic, exciting, elastic, diverse accounts I've seen in a long time. I mean, you talk about practical things about life, the way to live your life, values. Your family is like at the epicenter of the majority of what I see in terms of content, that and your mental and physical health. It's super exciting to watch your life unfold through your Instagram account. Share the account handle with our listeners.
At Steve Orosco. That's Orosco.
Love it. And look, we're pulling these images and all the other images we fluttered through to figure out what my background screen was going to be from there. With every guest, Steve, that we host, we start with 4 simple questions, and I don't want to cheat the system because great systems ran by great people create great outcomes. And so the first of the 4 questions is, what is your favorite color?
Oh man, it was always red. Red.
Love it. What's your favorite afternoon snack?
Well, I only eat 1 meal a day, so I don't have an afternoon snack.
When you pull him up online, you will understand how true that last comment is. Favorite childhood superhero?
Superhero Hulk.
Oh, that's right. And hey, that was a part of your name when you were fighting actively, right? What was the name?
Yeah, it was Hulk Smash.
I love it. And you fought at what? At about $170?
Actually 155.
My goodness.
Yeah, I would cut down from like 185 to get to that weight, and it was misery. Yeah. I did fight at 170 twice, and I didn't feel as prepared at 170. Like I feel like that arduous battle of cutting weight to the point you feel like you're going to die really prepares you mentally for battle. Compared to fighting at 170, you didn't have to cut as much weight. I didn't feel as mentally prepared.
Yeah, that completely makes sense, right? Last question. So I find that most people have kind of like a go-to jam or a go-to artist or a go-to record in terms of music when they're trying to get excited, calm down, de-stress, chill, relax, enjoy company with others. What is either your favorite artist or your favorite song, and why?
Oh, my favorite artist. I would say right now, this artist NF really hits hard for me. He has this one song called Paid My Dues. When that song comes on, I want to run through a brick wall. I'm ready.
So Steve is married to Janine. Incredible story. I followed it via Instagram way back in the day when they tied the knot. You could see a lot of that there, and has an incredible 16-year-old daughter named Peyton, 8-year-old son named Jackson. How much are the children a reflection of you and Janine?
Everything.
Yeah.
And not to single out my son, but I think my son is literally a splitting image of both of us. He's so empathetic and gentle, like my wife, and nurturing. But man, when I train him or when he's on the soccer field or the wrestling mat, he is so competitive. It is incredible. There's certain things you can't teach, like he was born with. Even like with education, here's a real quick one. He's only in second grade. Every month he gets this like calendar with 30 squares. He has to do a homework assignment every day. So this last month he was sick. We missed 4 assignments and he did not want to bring it to school. He said, I'm not bringing it to school unless it's all completed. So we literally the next morning had to bring him to school late so he could finish those 4 boxes. And that's, most kids would have been like, who cares? Let's just bring it in.
That's right.
And I love that. Love that.
Yeah, that's incredible. That's awesome. With our own children, Ava and Atlas, who are 14 and 12, they're an absolute reflection of Samantha and myself, and thankfully much more Samantha. And that makes them pretty special kids. Thanks for sharing that. So talk to me about, I want to really focus on 3 buckets that I've had in my mind's eye when I kind of looked at your story and looked back beyond even when we first met. But I see some really hard pivots in the vision for your professional life and your aspirations. So I want to focus on that. Secondly, I want to focus on where this just like insatiable the commitment to grind and to like just attack everything that you touch. You talked about how you just have a really hard time sitting on the sidelines. I want to talk about where that inner drive and that grit and that commitment to the hard work comes from. And lastly, I really want to focus on today and your vision moving forward. It's super excited to hear that you're running for office in Connecticut. And I really want to hear about that story and see if we can dive deep into that. How do you feel about those 3 buckets for today?
I'm good. All 3 of them.
Well, let's go back to the beginning, because you grew up wrestling.
That's it.
You grew up. Yeah. Tell me about that. And tell me how you ended up in Wall Street.
Yeah. Wall Street's a funny story, but I always say wrestling built me. I think wrestling is the single most important sport any boy or girl can do, because it's one-on-one. You're accountable, you're responsible. The more work you put in, the better the outcome. And again, not everyone is passionate about wrestling. I was fortunate to find wrestling and absolutely love it at an early age. So I was so committed to the grind and the process that it just propelled me for every other aspect of life. So now everything that I do, I want to do at the highest level and literally be the best at it. Otherwise, I don't even want to do it in the first place. I'd rather not.
Where do you think that, well, first of all, that's extremely evident, even in from a public facing perspective, in the things that we see you pursuing and achieving on a consistent basis, right? So hats off to you, because I think a lot of times Samantha and I, my spouse, we talk about how sometimes we're not as authentic with what we say versus what we do.
Absolutely.
And that happens to all of us, right? We're all living an imperfect life, but I do see that about you. Where do you think that commitment to the grind and that need for achievement originated from in you?
Yeah, that is definitely wrestling. I think the ability to not be scared to fail is one of the most important traits you can have. And the only way you can fail, the only way you can get there is by failing. And wrestling is that one sport that constantly, it humbles you and it hurts your feelings. Like you literally put your soul on that mat week in and week out, and to go out there and lose to another human, it's hard. And then the next day you got to get right back on the mat and do it again and do it again and do it again. And my freshman year in high school, I think, is what propelled me in the first place, because our wrestling team, we weren't that good, but we had incredible lightweight guys. We had a kid at 119 who was returning winner-up at states, and the kid who was at 103 was an all-state wrestler too. Now, I only weighed 95 pounds as a freshman, so I was forced to wrestle at 112. I got my ass whooped the entire season. I went like 2-17 or something like that. So for me, it was losing week after week after week, going into practice, getting my beat by the guy above me and below me. So I think that just the fact that I never quit and I kept on driving because I love the sport so much kind of catapulted me to where my mindset is today.
Is that so? Say that again.
If it was any other sport, I don't know if I would have felt the same way, but something about wrestling it really fed my soul, and it still does.
Yeah, I've and thank you for sharing that. I've had friends that I grew up with that were, pretty accomplished wrestlers who would say, this is the one sport when you hit the showers and you look at yourself in the mirror, it's like, man, I either did the work or I didn't do the work. Yeah. And that's it. There's nowhere to point a finger at. And he would always speak about how humbling that was, but his aspiration to be great is what, just kept him coming back and putting in the work.
Yeah. And listen, there's so many times where you literally have given everything you could possibly do during the week to prepare for your match. Train 2-3 times a day, your diet, everything. But that night you might still lose. The other guy might have a better night. And you're like, oh my God, I did everything I was supposed to do and I still lost. And to be able to come back from that, I think it's a certain drive in somebody, because some people will crack and they're like, oh, this isn't for me.
So so not just in sports, but also in business, we've often talked about it as resiliency or that bounce back ability. How quickly do you get past a moment of failure or adversity and get back to what you said you were committed to doing and achieving? Where do you think you got that from? Who in your life as you were growing up did you observe kind of demonstrate that mindset and that consistent behavior?
Honestly,
yeah,
I feel like I taught it myself, but my mom is my hero. My parents got divorced when I was 12. And I also had a sister who was only 2, and my father moved to the next state to help take care of his parents who were older. And during that time, man, I watched my mom struggle with, working. She went back to school. She got her bachelor's, but she studied so hard that she got into Yale. Oh. So she got into Yale at, I don't know, must have been 40 years old. So my senior year of high school, she moved to Connecticut to go to Yale. And I had to stay in Rhode Island to finish my senior year. And I watched her literally crying at the dining table with, Organic Chemistry 1 and Organic Chem 2. I remember those days. And she was like, I can't do it. This is a single mom having to take care of 2 kids. And she did it. And she went to Yale and she lives in California, has an incredible job. And she's definitely my hero of, if you want it bad enough, you can do it and you'll find the time.
That's awesome. What a great story. And I appreciate you sharing that. What's your mother's name?
Heather.
Heather.
I think my mother's, not taking anything away from my father's side of the family. My father's side, first generation Trinidad. So immigrant, hardworking. Yep. But my mother's side was all about striving and greatness and education. My mom went to Yale. My grandfather went to Babson, which is one of the top business schools in the country. My great-grandfather went to MIT. So education was very, very important in my household.
So choosing to study finance at Pace, is that what got you onto Wall Street? I mean, talk to me about that decision-making process. Like, what was going on? How did you decide that's what you were going to do? Especially because you had a relatively decorated high school wrestling career.
This is one thing that was just an accident. And this is why I didn't stay on Wall Street. It wasn't for me. I truly feel when you're in high school, you really don't know what you want to do. My senior year, I took an American experience class. Now, just ironically, we did this thing called the Wall Street game. The stock market game, where they took they broke the class up into teams. And then the winner of the class would go against all the other people within the states. So I loved it. I got addicted to reading ticker symbols and figuring things out. I won my class. I placed top in the state. And then I saw the movie Boiler Room in high school. And I said, that's what I want to do. I'm good at stocks for some reason. And Boiler room is awesome. I'm just going to be a Wall Street guy. So then when I picked my school, I said, where's the closest college to Wall Street? And it was Pace University, 6 blocks away. So that's what got me there in the first place. And again, like everything that I do, I really strive for the top. So I really worked hard. I did it for about 4 years, and then it wasn't for me. And that's why I went back to school.
That's awesome. And so you went back to school and you pursued what degrees? Can you share that with us?
Yeah, I get it. I did a double master's. It's a master's of science management and a master's of business. So an MSM and an MBA.
And what inspired you to do that other than the fact that you just have this consistent track record of overachieving?
Yeah, I realized Wall Street wasn't going to be my future or finance. So I had gotten recruited by a firm called Barnum Financial Group in Connecticut. So it brought me out to Connecticut. And while I was there, I just kind of fell out of love with the whole industry. I was working for a paycheck, and it wasn't who I was. It didn't feed my soul. And at the time I said, let's go back to school, and kind of figure it out. And that's why I went back and actually lied my way into grad school because it was actually an executive MBA program where I needed like 3 years of upper level managerial experience. And here's me, 23 years old. And I had a friend who owned all these video store chains here in Connecticut. And he lied and said I was his GM for 3 years. So I got in. And the funniest part about the story was I walk in this room, everyone is like 40 plus. And it's just me, this 23-year-old guy. And the first day there, they went around the room. You had to like do this little mini presentation about yourself on the spot. Nobody wanted me on their team because there's one of those programs where they break you up into cohorts.
Sure.
The team building was the new paradigm.
Yeah.
And no one wanted to be on my team until I had my first real presentation. Everyone was like, wow, we want you. So like,
that's it.
So the beautiful thing about all of this is I learned so much in my MBA because I was surrounded by people that were in business for, 15, 20, 30 years at a higher level. And you learn so much more from people than you actually do from a textbook, as you know. And I think that was the most important part of my education.
Yeah. One thing that I've noticed about as I've followed you along some of your life's path is, you are consistently surrounded by high achievers and high performers. Not just in my personal life, but at the firm and on behalf of the people that we serve and lead here in the great state of Michigan and the Midwest. We consistently remind our teammates like, hey, you got to audit your circles personally and professionally. Absolutely. Right? Like, birds of a feather flock together could never be more true. People kind of chuckle at it, but it's a real thing, right? It's true. And so speak to us, share with us kind of the approach that you've taken to auditing your circles, if you will, and determining, hey, is this a person that has a place in my life? And am I willing to give some of my time to have a place in theirs?
Yeah, it's really hard because you really have to feed through the sea of snakes and people who aren't authentic and genuine, especially when I lived in California for 10 years. Man, half of that time was in Los Angeles. And when you start an entertainment company like Smash Global, MMA, everyone wants free this and free that and help me here and help me there. Introduce me to this person, introduce me to that person. You realize how selfish people are. And you really find out who the real ones are. And like you said, I personally try to surround myself with the highest level possible. Can't be an asshole though. I always say, this is my term, humble savages. You got to be humble and you got to be a savage at the same time. So, for example, A-Rod's become a good friend of mine. He's a humble savage. Michael Hearn, the fitness influencer, humble savage.
Yes.
Shane Mosley, boxing legend. Dude, the most humble person you'll ever meet, absolute savage when that bell rings. And those are the people that I like to surround myself with. I'm not into the cocky and the narcissist and me person. I want the person who's at the very top, but very caring, empathetic to others.
What are some of the, I genuinely believe that some of the greatest things that have been achieved by humanity are a reflection of collaboration, inclusion, and teamwork. Yes, collaboration, absolutely. Inclusion, and teamwork, right? What are some of the characteristics or some of the traits that you might be looking for in people that help you understand, is this person in or outside of my inner circle?
Tough question. I'll tell you what, I always look for people that are higher at a higher level than myself.
Okay.
For example, I train super hard.
Yeah.
So I try to find people that train harder than me or different. And that's why I like to use Michael Hearn as a great example, because we train completely different. He's about lifting heavy and about, muscle size and bone density. And I'm all about the heart condition. So I will outwork anybody in the gym, period. Anyone's watching, I'm talking to you. But when we go into the gym and I train with him when I'm in California, we're benching and doing the leg press machine, I am dead because I don't train like that. So I try to find people that have been much more successful in different areas than myself.
Awesome.
I think that's really important. So again, for that reason, you have to really humble yourself to walk through the door and be like, all right, this person at a higher level than me, I just got to catch up.
Yeah, that's great. So always looking for who is the rising tide, right? I mean, I think President Kennedy is the one who said it. Yeah, I think it is. The rising tide lifts all boats.
Yeah.
And so, it sounds like that's extremely appropriate in the way that you're selecting the mentors and the friends and the people that you become close with around you, people who are actually elevating the tide for others.
Yeah. I mean, listen, I've been around plenty of people that I would have liked to be a mentor of mine or that would like to be in my circle, but I just didn't connect with them. We didn't have the same personality. Maybe they were too tyrant-esque or narcissistic or cocky. And I just don't vibe with that personality. I'm a very, heart on your sleeve kind of guy. Like I genuinely want to help you, because at the end of the day, like you're successful, I'm successful. The amount of hours that have been given to us for free by other people should be given back to others. So I look for those people. It's really important. I have thousands of hours of coaches that have given me their time. It's my responsibility to give that back.
Yeah, that's great. That immediately makes me think of better understanding the vision and the ambition and desire you have for running for public office. Can we pivot to that?
Absolutely.
Instead of waiting until the end. I mean, when I hear you say that, I mean, I just think of that concept of always pouring water into the well that you're taking from, right? If you
Absolutely.
get the privilege and benefit to drink from it, sometimes you've got to be the one putting the water in for others. Speak to us, share with us where like the vision and the appetite and desire to go into public office came from.
So I was approached last year to run for alderman. And if people don't know what that is, alderman is basically the mayor of your ward or your district.
Yes.
So in Haven, there's 32 wards. So my ward, especially, we're having someone going into their 7th term. They're like, hey, we got to get him out. Would you be willing to run? Now, this is about 60 days before election. So I didn't really have a campaign. I had just had Achilles surgery a month prior. So I'm on a knee scooter, right? So I had 30 days to campaign. I'm on a knee scooter, and then I'm on an ankle boot. I'm knocking on doors. And I was pleasantly surprised at how open people were and how every single person, regardless of party affiliation, had the same issues. So long story short, I lost by 200 votes. And I only had 30 days, which means I would have won if I had more time. I'm glad I didn't, because now I'm here. So fast forward to this year, I was asked again by Ben Proto, who is the chairman of the RNC here in Connecticut. He said, hey, Steve, we're looking for someone to run in New Haven. Now, New Haven, where I am, is like literally owned by Yale. So you can imagine we're the most liberal part of the entire state. I think we're outnumbered 14-1. Democrat versus Republican. Now, I am a Republican now, was a lifelong Democrat up until this last election. I'm just have become more conservative with age. The right just aligns a little more with my values right now at this stage of my life. We sat at lunch and he said, would you like to run for Senate or state rep? And I'm looking, and I go home, I'm looking at the two options. And I'm like, dude, this guy who's the senator has been in his seat for 15 terms, 30 years. And he was a state legislator in 81 when I was only 1 year old. He's also the president pro temp of the Senate in Connecticut, which is like the most powerful man in all of the Senate in Connecticut. I said, I want him. If I'm going to go after this, I want to go after the hard battle. And so I took it on, and I enjoy it. Again, if it was really easy, I don't know what it is about the battle, because when things are too easy, unfortunately, I do get complacent. It's like my Achilles heel. I need to always feel some sort of struggle. And so this seems like such an uphill battle that would be fun, because win or lose, it's going to be a good experience, because I am going to run for president. I promise you guys.
So tell me a little bit though about any meaningful lessons learned very early on in your political career. Are there one or two that stand out that you've been like, man, I would not have expected this, or wow, I can't believe how wrong I was?
I definitely didn't. So most people don't realize how their state is actually run until they do the research. And our state, for example, my district, we haven't had a Republican mayor since 1953.
Wow.
All our aldermen are Democrat, not a single Republican. We haven't, like I said, Martin Looney's been in his seat since 1993. And I'm like, everyone complains about New Haven. Everyone complains about Connecticut, but everyone keeps voting blue. And it's hard for me to understand why people won't just take a risk and just vote a different color, vote a different candidate. And if you don't like them after 2 years, vote him out. But people get in this vicious cycle of just voting the same way, and then nothing changes. And I have a hard time understanding that. And I'm really learning a lot about it. Because like I said, everyone has the same issues, public safety, education, taxes. Doesn't matter if you're Republican or Democrat. Those are what you care about.
That's right. What do you think? Is there a unique value proposition to those living in Connecticut that you represent by having grown up a Democrat and going through life, and as the priorities in your life have adjusted, you've realized that you align more with the Republican side? Is there a benefit in value to those that you would serve, that's been the life you've had and the perspective you've had?
I think people have this stereotype of what a Republican is. Unfortunately, it's like so old rich white guy. That's literally what it is. And honestly, I've said this, and I've spoke at Republican conventions and meetings. The problem with our party is we haven't been inclusive. We're not racist, we're not misogynist, but you don't see a lot of minorities and women, elevating women to high places, the LGBTQ community. There's a lot of millennials. Republicans are so just focused on legislative issues that they always say this, they fail to remember that a big portion of our country cares more about social issues. So until they can kind of gravitate a little more to the center, they're never going to win again, in my opinion. And there's a problem. I had a dinner. It's called State Central. They have it once a month, where it's all the candidates and other politicians in the state. They come for one meeting, and I'm looking around the room, and I don't throw the race card. I'm not that guy, but I still notice color because I am a man of color. And I'm looking around the room. There are 7 tables of 10 plus other staff. So 75 people. Can you tell me how many minorities were sitting at those tables?
Less than 5.
Yeah, no, 1. And it was me. And I'm like, this is the problem with the party. And this is why, we haven't evolved, and it's not okay. Like the guy who's running for governor now, an incredible human. I've met him, so nice. He's just another old rich white guy who's spending 10 million of his own dollars to campaign. Like at some point you need to understand relatability is extremely important. So that's what I'm getting at is I just feel like I'm the most relatable person that Republican Party has ever seen when it comes to everyone.
Let's hammer that concept. I've heard about the power of relatability before from other guests we've had. Explain the power of relatability and the benefit of that from your perspective.
Because unfortunately, people have a hard time putting the shoe on the other foot and understanding someone or something if they've never been there. For example, I had a meeting the other day with a family who they lost their son in 2018 from a fentanyl overdose. And they're like, listen, we're trying to get this on the floor of the house and this and that, and no one wants to hear us. But guess what? If any of those people on the floor, these politicians, lost their son or lost their kid to fentanyl, they would be taking that piece of legislation and pushing it through. But people don't have empathy. They don't know how to relate when it doesn't happen to them. And that's so unfortunate. It drives me crazy.
Yeah, I really enjoyed hearing that explanation. Samantha consistently will not insert herself, but when she sees there's an opportunity to improve an environment or an outcome for another unrelated human being, and she thinks she can be the difference maker, the game changer, she does it. She does it. She picks up the phone. She shows up at a school. She contacts a family, a nonprofit, and I'm consistently blown away at the desire to just say, or to accept the fact that, well, if not me, then who?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. And I think there's something about that mindset that I'm hearing a little bit from you in some of the decisions you've made to just say, well, why not me? Can you share a little bit about that? If that resonates for you?
If you figure, my mother's white. She came from, I guess, higher class society. They're all educated. My father, an immigrant from Trinidad. So I'm half black. I'm half white. I'm educated. I have a family. I've worked on Wall Street. I fought in a cage. I'm constantly following the American dream. I just feel like there's not a single person on the planet that I don't relate to, unless you're like that far right and far left, different story. But at the end of the day, 80% of us that are rational in the middle, I feel like I do relate to, whether you're Democrat or Republican. At the end of the day, I know I'm a Republican, and they don't like me saying this, but we're all centrists. But we lean left and right depending on an issue. Like you could be a Democrat and be pro-life. You could be a Republican and be pro-choice. You could be a Democrat and have been against Colin Kaepernick kneeling. You could have been a Republican and been, he's exercising his freedom of speech. Good for him. Like every issue is different. And the fact that we have to just pick one side doesn't make any sense at all. And again, so now I don't even look at it like a party system. It's more liberal and conservative. And as I get older, let's get more conservative. And I just raise my son in that light, and how I want to raise my son is exactly how I want to also vote.
Yeah, that's great. I've had people in my life who say, I vote based on the change I think that's required to ensure that 30 to 50 years from now, when my children are adults like me, they have a better place to live. Absolutely. Right. And I do see that in many people that I'm close to, that, I'm surprised by what they're advocating for based on their personal life. Yep. And it's like, it's not about me. It's about where the puck's going for our children. Absolutely. And I just think that's such a powerful, humble, selfless, abundant way of looking at life. Absolutely agree with you. Absolutely. Yeah. So I want to come back now to the middle topic. I just have observed this consistency in just massive vision, big dreamer, big thinker, big doer. It's one thing to dream. It's another thing to actually do the work. In the middle of the pandemic, you open up a gym. Tell us that story. Yeah. So actually, I was also a first grade teacher for a year. Because when school was shut down, my son was homeschooled. Now my wife works, and she wasn't shut down. So I was forced to be a first grade teacher. And I'll tell you what, probably the best experience of my life, and definitely a defining moment that's made me want to run for politics that much more. Yes. The first couple of weeks, I'll be honest with you, I hated it. Learning the level of patience and teaching them how to add and write. And you realize how hard that is, because it's so simple for you, but so hard for them, Yeah. And he went from getting 2s and 3s to first grade. He got all 4s, just because he just understood it more. It's like
it's like taking a boxing class or having a personal trainer teaching you boxing. The difference is night and day. So I fell in love with it. I became so emotionally invested. And not to go on a tangent, but when I opened this gym and running for office, the hardest thing for me was going back to work. Leaving my kid, I felt like a mom. I know what moms go through. Yes. This is why they want to go back to work. Like you're leaving your kid for the first time, because we were attached at the hip for almost 18 months.
And going back to work outside the home, right? Because you would agree that work inside of the home is many times more difficult or complex than even the stuff we deal with, in a professional office setting or wherever we work professionally.
No, but my entrepreneurial friends like me saying this, but motherhood is much harder than being an entrepreneur. I don't care what anyone says.
Yeah,
I feel like when you're an entrepreneur, you actually have the drive and you love the grind so much. It's different, So I think being an entrepreneur is a little bit easier.
Well, there's my impression has been, especially when the pandemic first hit here in Michigan, though, you hit on it in terms of the patience, and I would also add the selflessness. Absolutely. That you have to demonstrate consistently.
Yep.
So that the child is nurtured properly and in a healthy environment to still be a child.
Absolutely. Yeah. So again, sorry to go on a tangent right there.
No, that's okay.
Yeah, so I had, when we moved back to Connecticut, power of Instagram, here we go. The owner of a gym is called RACC, RACC Training Center. And it was in Milford, Connecticut. He reached out to me and said, "Hey, Steve, I'd love you to come and train. Let me train you a little bit." I went down there and man, this guy put me through such a workout. And I was so blown away of his knowledge. And we just really started synergizing. And it came to the point where he was like, "Hey, Steve, and I would really love to have a partner, because he's also a full-time firefighter. So his schedule was so lopsided. It was hard for him to retain clients because, this week it's Monday and Tuesday. Next week it's Thursday and Sunday. Yeah. So how do you retain clients when your schedule completely changes all the time?" And it was run more like a private training studio, 5,000 square feet. He'd have classes like CrossFit and train people. And I said, "I'd love to." And that just turned into, let's just go all the out, so became a partner, remodeled the whole thing. We changed the name. I started a corporation, Smash HQ Corp, which now we put Smash MMA under it. And awesome. Now I'm trying to build the whole ecosystem. So I dissolved the Smash Global LLC, and I'm having my next show actually May 19th in Los Angeles. Finally, now that all the mandates have been lifted.
May 19th in LA.
Yep. So it's funny, you talk about your circle and your network. This is going to be the show where I really find out who my real friends, supporters are, because it's been 2 years. I'm kind of doubling this show as obviously my event to make money, but also as part of my campaign, because I have the red carpet, so many celebrities. I can really have maximum exposure, so when you have, and how like fundraising events are and political campaigns where it's, $5,000-$10,000 to go, I'm going to charge like $1,000, and I'm going to see how many of my wealthy friends and successful friends pitch in that grand to come support me. And then I'm going to really know who they are.
You'll have to either through myself or Alex, just drop us a note on that information. If we can be an advocate to promote that for you and obviously participate and attend, we'd love to do that.
I'd love to. And so I don't know if I also have a nonprofit. Another thing
I do. I don't think you remember. So 3 years ago when we first connected, it's when I was trying to expand what we were doing on a charitable basis nationally.
Oh, that's right.
And it's when I saw you marketing and promoting, kind of telling that story, that I was like, we have clients all over the country, even though we're based in the Midwest. Our reach to humanity and serving individuals around their, financial priorities is national. And I'm like, we're out in LA, we're out in Washington, we're out in San Fran and San Diego from time to time. Why are we not reaching out to orgs out there? And that's when you and I first had our first conference call. But tell us about that, because it's a great story.
Yeah. So Smash for Troops. It's like creating a pathway of success for veterans who have PTSD. Most of these veterans, they come back from war and they really don't have the tools to become entrepreneurs because that's not what they were taught. and they also come back suffering from PTSD. So they need outlets. So I was a part of a program called Merging Veterans and Players in Los Angeles, Jay Glazier and Nate Boyer, where they'd have this boot camp class. And in this class, they would take professional athletes and celebrities and match them up with veterans with PTSD. And after you're done with the hour training session, you'd always sit down on the turf and have a powwow and share stories. And the commonality is a brotherhood between athletes and military is like this. And I loved everything about it. So I ended up starting my own nonprofit as well, which I'm going to bring obviously here to Connecticut, which I'm going to do the same exact model at Smash HQ.
And so what is the event for people out in the LA market? And we have Reach out there on May 19th. Is it open or is it invite only?
No, it's open. So you go to my website, smashglobal.com. You can buy tickets. So what I am going to do too, so my friends will have an excuse. Those who buy tickets and can't attend, I'm going to take those tickets and donate them to veterans with PTSD who normally obviously couldn't afford a ticket at that price point. And hopefully it works out well.
That's great. That's a great organization. I appreciate you sharing that story. It's exciting to hear that you're going to take it to the East Coast as well with you, where you and Janine are now, raising your children, your family, and serving the community there. What do you think is the next chapter after your time in political office? I find that most high achievers, high performers, they're like chess players. They already can see 3 to 5 moves down the field or down the chessboard. Talk to me about that. Is there something else that's on your list of things that you'd want to do and achieve?
I have a few bucket list items. As far as like things that are very attainable now, I do want my PhD. I can't help myself. I'm like, I already got 2 masters. I need my PhD. I'm getting it at some point. And that's something you can do when you're 50 if you wanted to. That's 1. 2, I need to do an Ironman. I need to complete a full Ironman, top to bottom, in Hawaii or wherever it is. So those 2 are easily attainable. Just putting in the time. And then as far as politics, governor, president. I'm not kidding. I will run for president. I promise. I have it in my head 2032. I keep on saying it. So we'll see what happens.
I love it. Talk to me about best piece of advice you've ever received, and who was that from?
Let me think about that. Oh, that's a tough one. I get so many pieces. I get so many tidbits. But I always say, like, you only deserve what you earn. And the more you try to earn, the more you deserve. And that's a problem with today's society. It's like this entitlement participation trophy. America, and it drives me crazy because I don't believe in that at all. What they're doing to like kind of make society mediocre and not strive for greatness is something I don't like. And then actually, with that said, now that I'm talking, that whole quote, I think Jordan Peterson said it about be a monster, then learn how to control it. Yeah. That literally is probably the one that gives me goosebumps every time I hear it, because it's really the truth. Like, everyone should be a monster and just learn how to control it.
Yeah, I love it when he speaks about I love it when he speaks about. I follow him as well, relentlessly. And he communicates about being the gardener or the warrior.
Yeah, better to be a warrior in the garden than a gardener in a war.
That's right.
That's one.
Right. Super powerful, right?
Oh my God.
So we find that a lot of young professionals follow our podcast and listen in. What is the one piece of advice you'd want to give them as we get ready to wrap up here in the last 2 minutes?
Entrepreneurs, man, you cannot give up. This is a great quote. I love saying this one. Hard roads become easy. Easy roads become hard. You choose your hard. And I'll always take the hard road first at all costs. Most people don't want that. People want to be in their comfort zone. They want it nice and easy. But guess what? The easy road is going to become hard one day, and then you're going to struggle, and you might break and quit. But if you start hard, it's only going to get easier. And that's just a fact.
That's awesome. Steve, look, I've absolutely enjoyed reconnecting today. Loved hearing more of your story, and we're excited to share this with others over time. Multiple educational degrees. Wall Street broker, MMA fighter, serial entrepreneur, really, right? Yeah. Charitable foundation, Smash for Troops. Website is smashglobal.com, runs Smash HQ out in Connecticut, running for Senate out of New Haven, Connecticut, married to Janine, Peyton Jackson, 16 and 8. First grade teacher is now on his resume. Steve, I don't know what more you could do, but it sounds like you're going to do a lot more. Man, it was a blessing and a privilege to be together, and I can't wait for us to connect again.
Absolutely. I look forward to it.
You're the man, man. Wishing you continued happiness, health, and success.
All right, you too.
Thanks, Steve.